Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond Resistance Pod, where we share hard-won insights to build blue power in red communities and start winning. I'm Sarah Schultz.
And I'm Jennifer Austin.
Jennifer, what are you fired up about today?
Okay, so I'm usually fired up about something that's like positive. I've noticed looking back at the things, I tend to be a little more positive fired up. That is not this thing today. Today I'm fired up pissed because and maybe a little scared, but I'm a, like the whole fight or flight thing. I've never had flight. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I've always gone directly into fight mode, and maybe
Same.
that's not always best, but anyway, I am not happy about the seizing of ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, and also because it's all really connected. This thing that Trump keeps saying about like federalizing elections so that
Yeah.
he can control them and make sure they're safe and secure. First of all, fuck you. Let's be honest. You just want to do it because you're a flippin' cheater and you always have been and you always will be. And you know the only way you can win is to cheat. And I realize he would not be on the ballot, but keeping Republicans in power so that he can continue to do all the bullshit that he's been doing for the last year. So yeah, I'm really, really upset about it, and I'm really proud of the Secretary of State and Tim Walz, the governor Tim Walz in Minnesota, saying no. You're not going to say, because they wanted the voter rolls in Minnesota and some other things, and they were like, oh, we'll take ICE out. And they
Yeah.
were like, no, take ICE out, and also you don't get our stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's just
And,
extortion. And
yeah,
yeah, I'm just like on fire about it.
I mean, the Minnesota thing is just, I mean, it's just so telling, right? Because then
Hmm.
it tells you it's literally not about safety at all. It's about
No.
like this means to the end, and the end is like you holding power. Like that's literally what the end is. And to say like, okay, we will take masked, armed, like, you know, agents out of from like terrorizing the streets of your biggest city if you just give us your voter data.
Yeah.
Like it is extortion, and that is ridiculous, and our voting rights are under attack everywhere. And this thing in Fulton County, Georgia is like uh I mean, we see where this is going, right? So like they did this big FBI raid. They videotaped it. They put it
Hmm.
out on
It's all
all of the
propaganda.
spaces. It's propaganda building toward further takeover of our
Hmm.
election process. And because we see it coming. Like whatever happened in Fulton County, like the federal government's going to come out and say blah blah blah. They're going to make up something about something. It's going to like kick off some kind of other action, and what they hope is that it leads to um, you know uh, fake outrage about a thing that doesn't even exist, so
Uh-huh.
that they can federalize the election process so they can hold on to power.
Yeah.
And so they hold on to power. By the way, the end of that means is so that super super rich people get richer. Like that's what this is all about. It's what it's
It
always
really
been
is.
about. It's what it's been about. And it's also about Trump not going to prison. Like that's
Uh-huh.
literally, those are the two things that are in play here. Um, that's how our voting rights are under attack. And this rhetoric has been around a while, and it's just getting worse right now as distraction after distraction happen, as we see the election results happening in Texas, where a Democrat in a special election for their state senate won by a huge margin in a place where Trump had carried that district by 17 points, and of course that
Hmm.
makes them nervous, so that they're amping up their attacks
Yes.
on voting. I mean, it's so obvious what's going on, and it's outrageous. It's just and so like my nervousness is not necessarily like the FBI going into Fulton County, Georgia. It's like, what is that? What is happening next after that? And the
Yes,
next and the
exactly.
next, and the service of this, diabolical goal to
Hmm.
basically cheat and not have fair elections, and to erode further the trust that we as American citizens have in our election process.
And that's just a slightly different subject, but kind of on the same idea is like we just had a primary election. So the Republicans had a primary election, the Democrats had a primary election. It's a special election. It's for one seat in Senate. It's Midland Bay City and Saginaw, kind of that, that Tri-City area. And each, like there was like 4 on the Republican side and 6 on the Democratic side. The We normally have more Republicans turn out in primaries in Midland than Democrats. In the city of Midland, we often still win the whatever Democratic general election, but we still tend to have more Republicans turning out in primaries for some reason. That was not true this time.
Yeah.
So many more Democrats came out in all 3 cities, and especially Midland. Yep. Midland actually kicked ass. Like we had the best voter turnout, and we outperformed the Republicans by quite a bit. And like you had posted about it, and a lot of there were Republicans that were like, "Well, we have jobs and we couldn't go vote." Dude, voting is always on Tuesday in Michigan. Always has been. Yeah. I'm happy for it to change to a weekend, but that it's not like this is new. Y'all have outvoted us in primaries before, so let's be realistic. And all the rest of us had to go to work too.
Yeah.
Well, we found the time to vote.
And Michigan has no reason absentee voting. So like if you're really worried about having to work, you could have voted absentee with no reason behind it if you just had a little bit of forethought into that. But we also know that the very people who are bitching about the fact that the election was on Tuesday and they couldn't vote, so that's obviously why Democrats voted more, are the very people who are like anti absentee voting, right? Because
anti early voting, or they're the ones that are like, we need to have ID for every voting, which we do. I have to give them my driver's license to vote. So, but the point is like they're the same people that are crying that people of color or poor people or undocumented people or whatever are voting and taking away their vote because they're hardworking Americans that can't vote on Tuesday. Give me a break, buddy.
I know.
We're all hardworking Americans.
I know. But the result, so I'm going to connect what's going on in our special election for Senate to what happened in, that made national news down in Texas, because down in Texas, in that seat where the Democrat won by a huge margin, even in a district where Trump won by 17 points, was also very much outspent by the Republican, and still won bigly, right? And so you contrast that and just compare that to what happened in our special election just this week. You see the same kinds and levels of enthusiasm on the Democratic side, in our special election too, and that's making, to get back to voting rights, that's making our the administration, the regime, super nervous, because we see in special election after special election, and the Virginia elections back in November and other places where Democrats are winning, right? Because we're not voters are not happy with what's going on in our country right now, and they're nervous, and the only way can think of to respond is to not actually be better at governing and being less assholes to their constituents, but to just cheat. That's their only response.
Why would we want to change our policies and stances to fit what the public wants?
Right.
What we want is for sure the right thing. Y'all are just stupid.
Yeah. So we're gonna.
That's what Republicans are saying.
Yep. We're gonna hold on to this ultra mega, minority of humans and what they think and what they've been taught to believe, and then just rig things, fix things, cheat things, because they can't possibly actually win.
Because they don't actually believe in the Constitution or democracy.
No, don't get me started about that. And we actually, on our next pod, I talk about that. But the to foreshadow the conversation we're about to have, the main irony in all of that is these are the same people who like call themselves the patriots. They say
I
that we
know.
are unpatriotic, and yet they're going after
Mm-hmm.
voting rights, the very
Yes.
foundation of like democracy as an ideology that our country is formed on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I don't know how all of that gets reconciled in somebody's brain when they go to put their head on their pillow. Like literally, I don't
Yes.
understand how that goes down. But speaking of elections and voting, we have a great conversation coming up on the pod. It's with our current Lieutenant Governor, Garlin Gilchrist, who joined us for the pod today for a great conversation. He's running for Secretary of State. That primary actually takes place at the Democratic Convention, which actually happens in April. And then, you know, whoever comes out of that primary process will be on the general election for November, and this really important statewide office
Mm-hmm.
that has always been important, but never more so than right now, as
Yes.
as the literal front line of protecting our voting rights and protecting our voting data and all of that. So it's a good conversation coming up with the lieutenant governor.
Today's guest, truly in Michigan, needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. Today we have Lieutenant Governor Garlin Gilchrist, the second or
Second,
third?
yeah.
Second. Okay,
Second.
your son is the third. I
That's
like
right.
blanked on that for a second. So Garland grew up in Metro Detroit and currently lives in Detroit. He has a BA of Science and Engineering. He is a husband. He's also a father of three wonderful children. He was a software engineer for Microsoft, City of Detroit's Director of Innovation, and helped create the Improve Detroit app. Worked for Community Change and MoveOn.org, was the founding executive director for the Center for Social Media Responsibility through the University of Michigan. He's currently in his second term as the Lieutenant Governor of Michigan under Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and he's a Democratic candidate for Michigan Secretary of State. Garland, welcome to the pod.
Welcome.
I'm so glad to be here with y'all. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Is there anything that I did not include in that bio that you want to just add for our viewers and those voters in Michigan?
Oh my gosh. You covered a lot. But I think what I would say is the thing that ties my career together, my kind of weird career trajectory that starts out in the private sector and then goes to community organizing and then municipal government and then higher education and then ultimately here is that I'm always in search of making things work for people, making systems work for people. And I think that's what connects it, whether it was when I was in the private sector, we had Microsoft, at SharePoint, fastest growing business ever in the history of the company, and like helping people be more productive at work. But that wasn't like that inspiring, if I'm being that honest. I wanted to make political empowerment real for people around the country, economic empowerment real for me, fighting things like voter suppression around the country real for people. So making systems that are supposed to work. That's what I do. And so that's something that really fueled my service everywhere in my career, my service as lieutenant governor, and the service I want to render as Secretary of State.
I love that because that is something that I think everybody around the country right now is thinking is like systems don't work for me, whether we're talking government or whatever it is, the education system. I mean, the different systems that we have set up in this country, a lot of them are not working for a lot of people, and that's something we really need to figure out.
Yeah, it is eternally frustrating when you feel like you are, doing the things you're supposed to do. But the system is fighting against you. And maybe it's fighting against you because the system was designed by the rich people who paid for it. And it's optimized for those wealthy people. Maybe these big corporations, they're the ones that have all the leverage, even though you, the person who works for that corporation, are literally the
Mhm.
one who creates the value. And so that is deeply, deeply frustrating. And it leads people to check out, right? I mean, if you interact with the government and your interactions are always bad, that is one of the reasons why people don't vote. Like
Mhm.
if I feel terrible every time I come and y'all ask me a question, you ask me for all this information multiple times, and every time it seems like I see you, I got to pay you money. Like I don't want to deal with you. So I think that
Yeah.
we have an opportunity though to truly make the public sector responsive and make the public sector what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be for, of, and by the people. It is supposed to represent people against those other interests and really work for us. And so that's really what I think my mission is to make that true for people and communities across this state.
Well, and thank you for all of that and for all those pieces of your career, right? As it sort of wound through different facets of your interest and your skills and kind of, you know, landed in the software and engineering space and then back to the public service space here in Michigan. I really think that those kinds of experiences and folks who've had sort of winding pathways into kind of public service really lend themselves to have some really great public servants out there doing the work, because you all have amazing perspectives, right? If you've been a public servant and then that's sort of the one pathway you've been on, then you kind of, there's a potential to lack some of those perspectives. So I really appreciate that. And what you just said about like when you experience the government, right? It shouldn't be frustrating. It shouldn't, always cost money. I mean, nowhere else does that happen more than with the Secretary of State's office, right? Because
Right.
if you think about it, like every, adult who drives, who, votes, who does those things, needs to access those services in ways that it's, different than maybe you would ever talk to your mayor, or you ever really need to see your county commissioner or even your state representative or whatever. So I'm wondering if you could kind of like talk about your kind of decision to run for Secretary of State. What makes you want to serve in that way, in that capacity, kind of coming from being our lieutenant governor? And why do you think that this is the right job for you right now?
I mean, this job is so important and it is so connected to the lives of Michiganders. As you alluded to, every adult has a relationship with this department.
Yeah.
IDs, vehicles, voting, like these things that really touch all of us. And so I think it's really important that this department that has a presence in multiple communities in every county, all 83 counties of Michigan. For a lot of people, it's their front door to the state government. It is the part of state government they interact with most consistently. And so that's why the experience needs to be the best. That means that it needs to be quick and convenient. It needs to be one and done when it can be. Things need to be affordable. And those are the kind of systems that I've built for my entire career. And so I'm running for Secretary of State because I want people to have a 21st century experience with this office. Most people, actually don't think about elections first when they think about the Secretary of State's office. They think about their driver's license or their state ID or their car registration and all these kind of things. And so all that stuff needs to work smoothly and work well and be brought into the 21st century and be convenient. When I think about things like the small things, but like, having our IDs be able to be on our cell phones, because a lot of people lose their wallet. Not that many people lose their cell phone. Okay, so it's like it's a good thing to have conveniently as an option, right? Not forcing people to put on their phone when they want to, but as an option. So I think about this in terms of this department has more data and information about Michiganders than any other state department. Okay, and that data, the Trump regime is chomping at the bit to get their hands on that data. They're suing states every week to get unredacted voter file information so they can surveil, so they can intimidate, so they can hurt and harm people because they are hell-bent on hurting people. But also the big tech companies, they want that data so that they can feed it into they want to mine it for, product development, feed it into an AI data model to feed through a data center that we don't even want, right? I mean, it's like they are so hungry for that information. And we need someone in the Secretary of State's office to be the guardian of our personal information and privacy. And like I said, I come from the tech industry. Look, I left the tech industry because I didn't like what their plans were. Okay. And so we need someone who can speak that language, who they can't BS on the other side of the table, and who can say, I'm going to protect Michiganders' information from data mining, from surveillance, and be there for you. I'm running because I'm the only person in this race qualified to be able to do that. And frankly, look, I'm the only elected software developer at the state level in America today. And that will continue to be true and as Secretary of State. And as technology continues to grow in influence and importance, it is critical that we have people in leadership at the state level, especially, who cannot be just like bulldozed by that
Yeah.
industry. And I'm not that person. I also think that the Secretary of State's office has a really important consumer protection role to play. Secretary of State's office certifies, mechanics and auto repair spots. And all of y'all drive in Michigan, you know. One of the things we all share is having to
Yeah.
get a car fixed once or twice. And when there's a dispute between you and the company fixing your car, the Secretary of State's office is the branch of a part of government that investigates that, holds them accountable. I'm going to make sure people don't rip you off. That's part of my job. And then we come to this final piece of being the guardian of democracy here
Yeah.
in the state of Michigan and making sure that the attacks, the clear and present danger that Donald Trump poses, that he is not able to be as successful at breaking our democracy as he was breaking our economy and raising prices on people. I'm running for this office because people across Michigan, when they talk to me about high prices and talk to me about the lack of childcare and housing and healthcare, they also talk to me about that fear that if Donald Trump can break this, if this system doesn't work of democracy, of voting, and we can't trust it and know that it counts, if that's broken, we can't use the tool, the powerful tool of voting to fix the other systems, to vote in people who hold corporations accountable, to vote in people who will protect our environment, to vote in people who will look out for our education system and our children. I was deeply moved by that because, maybe the problem solver in me, the engineer, maybe that is the problem I need to step in and step up and stand tall and solve this year, right now, for our people, for our communities, for the state of Michigan. And so I'm drawn into that. And folks may not know, I was drawn to public service to be an election administrator. I ran for Detroit City Clerk in 2017.
Right.
So
Yep.
this is not something that was really ever far from my heart, the importance of opening the doorway to democracy to the people of Michigan. And so I am eager and excited to step up into the opportunity to do that for our state.
And I love like a couple things there. One, you called it the Trump regime. When I was writing out our notes for Sarah and I put administration in there because I wasn't sure. Not everybody's ready to go there. I call it the Trump regime.
Yeah.
And I think that's the appropriate way to refer to it at this point. And yeah, what you said a lot about like protecting data and protecting, all of our information, that is so incredibly important, not only to protect us from the Trump regime, but like you said, like the big tech companies that are just gaining too much control, gaining too much power, and knowing way too much about us. I don't know how everybody else is, but if I have the option to opt out of them knowing what my data is, or recording whatever it is that they know about me, I'm going to put that in there. I don't care whether my ads are targeted. I just would rather they didn't know if I can avoid it.
Absolutely.
But so one thing that I wanted to talk about with you is that you and I have a connection, and we do share that connection with a lot of other people, but not everybody quite understands what this is like. We, it's trial by fire, although I will say you had it worse. So, listeners, Garlin and I both have sets of twins, and I think mine are 13, almost 14. How old are yours?
Mine are 12. They'll be 13
Okay.
in September. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're in the same sort of age bracket. We're kind of in the same territory, but mine were those were like kids 4 and 5, and for Garland they were 1 and 2. So you like got it all at once. So I'm just wondering, like, what does being the father of twins, what has that taught you, and how would you apply that to campaigning and service in government for that matter?
Okay, so first of all, it is true that we had twins out the gate. And so I didn't know my whole introduction to parenting was twins. And so that was bananas in and of itself for my wife and I. I don't know that that's easier than like already having 3 children and having 2 more. I don't know that I'm ready to concede that. Like, so let me.
I at least had some experience.
That's great. So we have 3 kids, and when Ellen was when we discovered Ellen was pregnant with Ruby, we go to the doctor. Let's just say we made the doctor verify that there was a single heartbeat a lot. Okay. So that's the thing. Being a twin dad, first of all, it's been absolutely amazing. My twins were born on my birthday. So
Oh,
like it's just like the most awesome just like gift I could have ever received from my wife and God is getting two babies on my birthday. So it's amazing.
It's amazing.
I think what it's taught me is so many things, right? Like one, I have boy girl twins. They are incredibly different people. And so it is important that you build real
Mm.
individual relationships with people in order to serve them. And as a father, like my job is to make sure I'm taking care of my family. And I can't do that if I don't take the time and apply the attention to them as individual people, recognizing their unique interests. To not you, we don't really even refer to them as the twins. Like they are Garlin and Emily, right? And that's very intentional because they have identities. And part of why I'm mindful of that is because like my wife is actually a twin. She has a fraternal twin sister. So she was very mindful of that with them as well. So we think about that a lot. And so how I apply that to leadership is I need to show up for everyone and give them my full presence and undivided attention. When I'm talking to somebody, I'm not looking at somebody else. When I'm in a room with people, I am all the way in that room. I want to understand and experience what is important to them so that I can take it and then reflect it back through the work that I do on their behalf to this point as lieutenant governor and going forward as secretary of state. So I think being a father, but being a twin father in particular has taught me that while we had to take care of two people at the same time, but I got to take care of them differently, you know?
yeah.
So that's been really important and informative. And so as a leader, just my job is to recognize the value, the beauty, the just individual amazing characteristics of all of our Michigan people, all of our Michigan communities, all of our Michigan regions, and make sure that they all can be elevated and positioned to be the best version of themselves going forward. I learned that being a twin dad.
I
Yeah,
love
I
that
can concur.
reflection.
Because like my twins are identical boys, but still incredibly different people.
They are.
I don't
Yeah.
know, nature or nurture, who knows, but totally different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I'm hearing about your reflection, Garland, is that no group is a monolith, right? Like there's no group that's like,
Mm-hmm.
I can count on this group of humans to vote for me or to agree with this or whatever. It's because each group is made up of individuals and each
Mm-hmm.
individual has their own priorities and experiences and situations, and really understanding those folks as individuals, while also understanding and holding the truth that like among groups, rural, like urban, across the state, there are so many of similar sort of worries and concerns, right? So like holding both of those things to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I've been to all 83 counties of Michigan at least 3 times. There's nobody in Michigan who has put in the work on the road like I have. No other elected official, nobody. And the reason that was important to me is because I respect and value the differences and diversity of the people and communities in Michigan. And so, yeah, the black guy from Detroit spent a bunch of time in Gogebic County in the westernmost county in the Upper Peninsula that borders Wisconsin. And the reason for that is because I wanted them to know that they were important to me. I want them to know that they were important to Michigan's future, and that the issues that were important to them, that they would see their lieutenant governor working on them. And you're right that a lot of the challenges rhyme. Everybody's talking about housing. Everybody's talking about
Mm-hmm.
childcare. Everybody's talking about
Yep.
utility costs. Like those issues rhyme. They just show up maybe slightly differently in
Yep.
different communities: rural, urban, suburban, exurban. Black, white, Latino, API, whatever. And so we have to make sure as leaders, like my responsibility is to make sure that people know that I hear them, that I see them, that I'm with them, that I will work tirelessly on their behalf, and that and I'm gonna show up for them too. And so that is really important. I plan to continue to that kind of energy as Secretary of State of Michigan, and I'm just looking forward to continuing my service.
Yeah. I mean, and I, from personal experience, understand and know your sincerity when you literally say, like, you want to know everything about everyone in the room. Because the story I like to tell here in Midland about my experiences with you is when I was a former candidate and we did a little event on Zoom. This was in 2020, so we were everything everything was Zoom back then. And plenty of folks. So you were going to join a Zoom. We were going to talk. I think we were as a fundraiser or something like that. Plenty of folks would have just said, sure, I'll just jump on this call and give a generic spiel about whatever's going on. And you insisted, and I was so grateful for this, that we meet beforehand, that you and I have our own separate Zoom a couple days beforehand, that we
Mhm.
just like knew each other on a more personal level, that you knew Midland and me. And I can remember on that call, you had one of your babies like crawling all over you and all of that. I mean, it's just such a real experience. But I believe you, right? You definitely are sincere when you say, like, you're in that room fully. You're trying to meet folks where they are. You're not making assumptions about what they look like or where they're from when it comes to what they care about.
Mhm.
I just appreciate that perspective and the way that you do this work.
Thank you, Sarah. That's really kind.
Yeah. Um, Awesome. So I wanted to jump back to the question that where we're talking a little bit about the Trump regime and kind of the role of the Secretary of State. Um, uh, because right now in the news we have a lot of stuff going on. We have got, it's always been a dangerous rhetoric about voting, but it's gotten more so, right, with what's going on in Fulton County and seizing the ballots. His talk about federalizing elections, which is like, what is going on? Um, and then I had a conversation with my daughter a couple of days ago. She just turned 18. She just voted for the first time in the special election here this week, and she had heard about the SAVE Act, and
Mhm.
what is being talked about in Washington D.C. And the message that she got from all of that boiled down to, when and if I get married, I'm never going to take my husband's last name. And like
Mhm.
the fact that
Mhm.
like what's going on in DC and potential like legislation could cause her to make that decision so she wouldn't potentially lose her right to vote. It's just heartbreaking. And so I guess what I'm wondering about is, when you think about becoming our Secretary of State, I wonder if we could talk, we talked about this a little bit, but like kind of dig in a little deeper on uh, how the role of Secretary of State might be so critical in protecting our elections and our freedoms.
First of all, congratulations to your daughter on being a new voter.
Yeah,
That's
it was this.
amazing.
I was so excited. I
It's
like
important.
nerded out with her. She like rolled
Yeah.
her eyes a bunch of times. She was excited, but she couldn't admit to
But
it.
it's important, right? Like I remember,
Yeah,
my
so so.
my first election was the 2000 election. I voted in my dorm in Ann Arbor. So like, look, I get it. It's important. What Trump represents, what he is doing right now, him and his allies, is like horror movie type stuff. This is absolutely dangerous and destructive. And the talk about, like, it's personal. I'm a Detroit voter. Okay, when he's talking about Detroit and nationalizing election and mention Detroit, but he's talking about my vote, my
Mhm.
wife's vote, my neighbor's vote.
Yeah.
It is horrific. It's disgusting. And so, as Secretary of State, as the person who's responsible for elections in Michigan, we need to hold tight and hold fast to the principle that elections are not run by the federal government. And that was intentional, that these are run at the state and local level, simply
Mhm.
because in this American system, we don't trust the federal government to do that, because we don't have centralized kingmakers like that. That's not how this is supposed to
Yeah.
work. And so we hold that power at this level. And the Secretary of State, first of all, has to be the one to step in and say, hell no, you can't do this. You will not be able to take us over Michigan. You will have to literally go through me. So if they try to come in and seize ballots anywhere in Michigan with me as Secretary of State, I'm gonna meet him at the door. And we gonna have to have a conversation about it. And for those who, look, I'm sitting down, I'm 6'8", I'm big. Okay. Like, they gonna have to come through me to be able to make sure they can't get to your ballots, to your vote, to your power, to your rights. Like, that's what we have to do. We have to make sure we can prepare and equip our courageous, committed election administrators at the local level, the municipal level, the county level, the people who are actually working in the individual polling locations. These are people who are committed and who love that work. They know they're doing the important work. They are the frontline workers of our democratic process. We need to make sure that they have what they need. We need to make sure that we are protecting them as well as the voters they are serving from the intimidation of agencies like ICE, from having federal agents like pointing guns toward the doors of polling locations. This is where this could be going. This is what these Trump people are dreaming about. We have to stop that, and we can't stop that. We can step up and stand tall against it. And so, as Secretary of State, my job is also to find ways to not, you know, go out of my way to support their dangerous actions. I mean, I take inspiration from the Secretary of State of Maine, for example. The Secretary of State of Maine made a decision that office was going to no longer grant these like temporary ghost license plates for ICE vehicles to be able to use that stuff to carry out what we believe are dangerous, destructive, and illegal activities against our citizens. Like that is a Secretary of State using the tools available to them to stand up for our values. And so I will be even more creative and aggressive with how I protect people than they are creative and aggressive with how they hurt people.
I love that. And just something that I think about, and I think we all know this, and I haven't heard a lot of people say this, but let's just talk about it for a second. We know that Trump, threatening to federalize elections or put ICE out in front of polling locations, or, he's talking about Detroit or Atlanta or whatever city that he's talking about. Yes, it's about Democrats. It's also about racism, because he knows that if he scares even American citizens who are Latino away from the polls, that'll benefit him. If he scares Black Americans away from the polls, that will benefit him and his party, because they tend to vote Democratic. But it's just boiled down on that racism, and even more so in the idea that, oh, those big cities run by people of color or majority people of color, they're dishonest. And that in itself is racist.
Absolutely.
And so frustrating to me.
Absolutely. I mean, look, this is grounded in the fact that what the president has done as president has enacted a bunch of dangerous, destructive, and deadly policies. Taking healthcare away from people, taking food out of hungry people's mouths, hurting children. Like this administration is so dangerous and unpopular. And they know they're unpopular. But so their answer to that is not by not hurting people, not breaking things, not being dangerous and deadly and destructive. Their answer is, well, let's just like rig the election so we ain't got to worry about what these people think.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why they do the try to punk these state legislators in other states to redraw into gerrymandering districts, mid-decade. That's why they are you going to try to punk election administrators into giving them voter data or going and seizing it in places like Georgia where they've seen blocks to it. So they got to cheat because they know their policies have been hurt people, and so we just need to make it clear that if you want to win in Michigan, we don't accept cheating. We're not going to stand for it. Not here.
I appreciate that so much, and I absolutely believe you. And I think that the added hypocrisy of like the only way they can win is to cheat, and so they're going to cheat, and yet they still try to claim that they're like the only ones who are patriotic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and that we're cheating.
Yeah. So like, how can you claim you're patriotic but also stand it in the way as much as possible to the basic right to vote? Like those two things feel so diametrically opposed to each other.
Yeah.
That hypocrisy is just unreconcilable to me.
When they accuse you of something, they're admitting the same.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's really what it is. It's really what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like either you're learning what their plan is coming up or what they've already done because they're going to accuse you of it. So on a slightly lighter note, we will get back to some more of this heavy stuff. You told my twins once at a barbecue, one of them, and I can't remember which one, was wearing a Falcon shirt of from Avengers. For those of you who are not fans,
Mhm.
so Falcon is a character in Avengers. He's got wings, and one of my kids was wearing that shirt, and you were like, "Hey, that's Anthony Mackie. I know him." And my kids were like, "That's Falcon. That's Sam Wilson." Like they had no clue. Like back then, it was several years ago. They were just like, I don't know who Anthony Mackie is. I
Right,
did.
right.
So my question is, can we have him at a fundraiser, and can I also be there? Because I would love to meet Anthony Mackie, Falcon, Sam Wilson, whatever you want to call him.
So I remember this interaction very well. And it's great that now he has graduated from being Falcon to being Captain America after the
Yes.
Brave New World film. So that's great. So great news for him. Sam Wilson's doing great.
Yes.
I cannot promise that.
Fine.
I cannot promise that. He's a couple Oscars heavier since then. But
He sure is.
but look, what I can say is something that I am very excited. Should I earn the privilege of being the Democratic candidate for Secretary of State? I want to build the kind of campaign that people are excited about. And people get excited about different things. Some people do get excited about like famous people coming to Michigan and doing something. So we want to have that be an element of the campaign. Some people get excited about hearing their neighbors tell their stories about why an election matters to them. And I want to give people a chance to do that. Some people get excited when they get to fully participate and take ownership of a part of a campaign. And I want to give people a chance to do that too. So this is a campaign that I want to reflect the kind of Michigan that we ultimately want, one that is inviting, one that is inclusive, one that recognizes that our vision for the future is so big that we have place and space for everyone. And to draw that sharp contrast between us and our opponents, us and the Republicans, us and the Trump administration, they spend so much time, so much energy trying to figure out who they can kick out of the future, who they can kick out of our communities, who they can eliminate and erase, because their vision is so small that it doesn't have enough space for everybody. That's the biggest difference between us and them. And everything like sort of grows out from that rotten core. But we can beat that. And I want to build the kind of campaign where people see it reflected.
That is one of my favorite things that I have ever heard you say. And you said something similar at our Blue Gala several years ago. And I love that it's something that means so much to you, that it's a continuing theme through your work, your service to Michigan and the country, that the idea that their vision is small and doesn't have enough room for everybody, but ours does. Ours is huge. Ours is all encompassing, and we have to find a place for everybody. That's the point of government and society and culture. And it really means so much to me that is like part of what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, like, look, when I came home to Detroit, from my wife and I, we came home from Washington, D.C., where we had lived, and with our twins. They were 10 months old when we came home. And I was thinking about the work that I wanted to do. And that is when I started working in government for the first time. I worked in city government in Detroit. And the reason that was compelling to me is because I'm a two-time recovering entrepreneur. Like I started and sold a couple of tech businesses. And like I had an idea for another business that turns out was like a pretty bad idea, so I didn't do it. And I had an idea for a nonprofit that wasn't viable for some other reasons. But when I thought about, I want to have an impact on the most people possible, in this case, in the city of Detroit, where I was living and wanted to work. And I thought, well, how do you reach everybody? There's no company that touches everybody. There's no organization that touches everybody. But if it's working as it should, the thing that actually should and could touch everyone in a positive way is the government. And so if you want to impact people at scale, this is the place where you have to be. And so I hold fast to that I think when it's working as it should, when it is meeting our ideals, the public sector, the government, is something that can be helpful in creating the conditions for people to be successful, creating the conditions for everyone to have access to their dream of health and wealth. And we all have a role to play in that. And that is why I find public service so important and so compelling.
That's fabulous. Excuse me. And so now on a more serious note, although I still think this is not entirely, there's some funniness in here. I love the stand tall sort of recurring theme in your campaign. Now, obviously, that is in reference to the fact that you said 6'8", the internet says you're 6'9". So I'm just saying, the internet says you're 6'9". You can go with that extra inch.
Well,
Nobody else
so
is going to
listen,
know.
listen. I'm gonna reject the misinformation, but what I will
Okay.
say is
Okay.
that as a child, I wanted to be 6'9" desperately, and so I fell short, and it's really problematic. But
Why did you want to be 6'9"? What was
Oh
specific
no,
about
you
that?
only hit 6'8".
yeah, right. No, 6'9". Look, 6'9" point
So
guards,
funny.
Magic. Penny
Mm-hmm.
Hardaway, Jalen Rose. I wanted 6'9" really
Yes.
bad. Okay.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But so that stand tall is part of your theme. Obviously, the height, and I love the incorporation of that. That's fabulous. But I know it means more. I know it means more for your campaign, for you, and for how you would serve as Secretary of State. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, I appreciate that. What it means is be all of you. We need your full self to be present in this campaign, to be present in this fight, to be present in the state of Michigan, and to not let anybody shrink you, shrink your dreams, shrink your ambition, shrink your abilities, shrink your identity, because we need you. We need you to stand tall, to be your fullest and best and boldest version of yourself in order for us to do what we need to do for our community to get where we need to get. And everybody has that within them, has that capacity to stand tall. And I hope that we can have a mission where everyone does and everyone feels safe and supported and strong enough to do so.
So great. That's so great. And you mentioned earlier that, which we know to be true here in Midland for sure, that you've campaigned across the state, that you've visited every single county multiple times. You're the only one in the race for Secretary of State that has campaigned across the state and won a statewide race. Um, Part of what we do here on Beyond Resistance Pod is really kind of emphasizing how important it is to get out there in all the communities, especially the ones that are, known to be conservative. We don't want to negate anything. We want to build blue power everywhere, and presence is so important when it comes to that. So I'm wondering how your experiences across this whole state so many times has prepared you for this campaign, and what advice you might give to people across Michigan and across the country who are trying to build blue power in places where we haven't historically found it.
I have grown so much from the conversations and connections that I've, you know, gotten from people all over the state of Michigan. And so one of the things that really sticks out is I recognize that it is intimidating to talk to strangers. And I'm an extrovert, so that doesn't really bother me that much. But I recognize that is intimidating. What I also have experienced is that um people have one kind of energy for you on the internet and a whole different kind of energy for you when you meet them in person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have met so many people who, came, shook hands with them and talked to them for a couple minutes and then have literally said to me, yo, I wanted to hate you.
Mhm.
I really wanted to hate you, but
Mhm.
you ain't that
Yep.
bad.
Yep.
And I don't think that these people turned around and voted for me in 2022, right? But I do think what happened is maybe somebody but they were at a restaurant with or at a gathering with started talking trash about me, and they were like, well, hold on, I met that guy.
That's right.
It's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
All of us are capable of opening the door a little bit wider in that way. Now, I'm not saying you got to go have a conversation or argument with somebody who is out to offend you, who's
Mhm.
out to hurt you. I'm not asking you to do that. But what I am saying is that the way that we marginalize people with those ill intentions is by being better connected. And so I just would encourage folks to just be willing to have a conversation, because you will be surprised. I the reason I don't judge people by how they look or what they wearing is because I've had people who, if you just looked at the uniform they had on, you would not think that they were as progressive as I am. Okay.
Mhm.
But the moment they opened their mouths, I knew that we were on the same team.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I think showing up matters, being willing to put in the effort to build a connection and possibly build a relationship, build a friendship. And I think you only accomplish that by going and looking people in the face. So that's why it's important to me. That's why I'm going to continue to be committed to that as a public servant. And I think that'll help us move our communities forward.
One
Yeah.
of my favorite stories from working in the campaign office, in Midland, is when we had reproductive freedom for all ballots, or the ballot initiative. And we were getting signatures, and we had made it known as widely as we could, as much as we can, that we had them in the office. And I wasn't working the front desk. I had other volunteers doing that. But I always, like, if I heard somebody come in, I would just peek around to see who it was, just to be backup, or if it was somebody I needed to talk to. Well, this big burly gentleman walks in with a Harley Davidson t-shirt, and I think chains on his waist and leather belt, and the beard. And I was like, what's going on here? So I kind of walked out just to make sure I could back up my person at the desk. And he's like, I hear y'all got some of those reproductive freedom ballot initiatives. I want to sign, and I'm on a motorcycle trip, and I just happen to be in Midland, and so I'm stopping here because I know I can sign. And I'm like, well, what county are you from? Let me get you a petition started. And, like, yeah, I was already prejudging this guy
Yeah.
based on his looks, and he was like, you're doing good work, thanks for being here, I'm from such and such a county, whatever. And
Yeah.
it was just a really great interaction. So you always kind of have to keep an open mind.
It's true. Look. I'm a 6'8" dark skinned black man from Detroit. People have made assumptions about me since I was 8 years old. Okay, and the first time I got racially profiled by the police when I was 8. Okay, so like I have lived that, and that lived experience is why I don't carry that into interactions with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much power in conversation, and getting to know people, and all their just different angles, just story after story after story about similar, just like what a conversation can do, and uh, what knowing somebody a little bit deeper can do.
Yeah.
And so our last question is kind of along those lines, right? So what we try to do here on Beyond Resistance Pod is to end our conversations with something light. And we just call it a fun question that helps our listeners get to know us and our guests a little bit better, maybe a little bit differently. So today's fun question comes from the fact that I'm tired of being cold. I'm just over it. I'm tired of being cold. I'm tired of wearing a coat. Like, it's just like, I feel like my coat is like 80 pounds. It's just like every time I put it on, I'm like, can I stop wearing this coat? But I'm noticing that the days are getting longer. It's 6 o'clock and it's still a little bit of sun out, and longer and longer and longer. So I'm dreaming about those Michigan summers already here in deep February, winter. So my question today for everybody is just like, where's a special place that you go in Michigan for a vacation? Like, where's a special in the summertime, or it can be winter too, but where's a special Michigan getaway for you that you kind of dream about in those quiet moments?
It's funny, actually. I got to burst your bubble because I'm gonna talk about something in the wintertime.
Okay,
So,
okay.
so during the pandemic, um, it was such a crazy, dangerous, fraught time. And so, me and my team and so many others were like just working wall to wall, trying to protect people and get COVID tests and get information out and all that kind of stuff, right? So like the pandemic hits in March of 2020. I didn't take a day off of work until February of 2021.
Oh my gosh.
And so my family, my wife and I and the kids, so we, for that first day off, we decided that we were gonna go someplace that we'd never been. So we went up north that February, and we went to Suttons Bay, Michigan, which is just outside of Traverse City. I'd never been to Suttons Bay before. I'd never seen it in Leelanau County. And we stayed up there for 3 days. We rented a little like kind of cabin up there for 3 days. and it was absolutely breathtaking. The bay was beautiful, the water, and I'll tell you the fun part. So my kids, so we go, and the place we rented was on the bay, and so my son threw a rock onto the ice, and when it hit, it made like this chirping sound. It's like a high pitched chirping sound that I'd never heard. Like, wait, is that what's happening? So we started throwing these rocks and these chirping sounds. And it turns out, like when the ice is like just the right thickness, there's a little bit of water underneath, whatever, right? It doesn't make a sound that's like a rock falling on concrete. It makes a sound that's like almost like a bird. And so I
Huh.
got back and I was talking to one of the legislators about that. He's now a state rep, Kurt Vanderwall, a Republican, who represents there. He was a state senator at the time. He's like, yeah, you never heard that before, right? I'm like, I've never heard that before. My mind was blown. But we made so many amazing memories as a family, for those few days we spent up in Sutton's Bay, that it is a place now that is forever like in our hearts. And we think about all the time. We talk about all the time. We've been up there a couple more times in the winter, and in the summer. But yeah, Sutton's Bay became that special place for the Gilchrist family.
Awesome. Sutton's Bay is beautiful.
Okay, I'm gonna cheat. Um, I can't pick one. I can't. Like we go someplace different for camping every year. So it's, wherever. Like I want to go to the Porcupine Mountains. We haven't done that yet. We haven't done as much in the UP as I would like. We've done more lower Michigan. But we've camped all over the state. I love Detroit. My husband's family's from Detroit, so and like the museums and just everything in Detroit. We've gone spring break in Detroit multiple times, and
Yeah.
people are like, "That's where you're going?" Like, yeah, we want to go to this, and this. But like, I love Mackinac Island.
Yeah.
I love Michigan. There's no part of it that I've ever been to that I'm like, oh, I never want to come back here. I'm always
Yeah.
like, oh, we should come back here next year, but we don't. We go to a new spot. So I just love Michigan. I cannot get enough of it.
It's great.
That's awesome. So I have dreams about this one beach in particular, on Lake Superior. It's part of the Picture Rocks National Lakeshore. It's Miners Beach, but the Miners Beach that's kind of like more populated is kind of on the, I guess it would be the west side of the beach. But if you go along and you kind of follow a driving path that talks about a hiking trail more than it does a beach, you can come to a spot that you can get out to the more western side of Miners Beach, and almost nobody is ever there.
Mhm.
It is so gorgeous. I've been to beaches, Caribbean and Europe and other places. This beach is the beach of my heart. It's got this like rock shelf that you can get out on. We take chairs and we put them right in Lake Superior, and just sit there, and the water's so blue and the trees are so green, and oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful, beautiful place to be. And I think that we had a person at a campaign watch the other day who was asking us, who's from New Jersey, and she was asking us what to do in Michigan. And when we were describing just the beaches and the lakes, and like you literally can't see across these lakes, and they literally have tides, and you literally cannot boat on them sometimes because it's too high of waves. She was sort of like blown away. And the Michigan beaches and the whole kind of lake areas are amazing, but that beach in particular is the one I keep going back to.
Okay, I have an honorable mention since you talk about beaches. Sunset Beach in Holland.
Oh,
Okay.
It's called Sunset Beach because like it's funny. People are there during the day playing whatever, right? And then people kind of like empty out and go eat dinner, and they come back like by the busload at sunset, and it is this breathtaking sunset over Lake Michigan. That just it is actually breathtaking.
I've never
Oh,
been there.
wow.
I'm gonna
Called
have to do
Sun,
that.
Sun
I
called
don't think I
Sunset
have
Beach.
either.
It's
Okay.
fantastic.
I have to check that one out.
Awesome. Well, Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much again for your time. Time is the most precious thing in our lives, and so that you are willing to and open to having this conversation with us means so much to us and so much to all of our listeners. Where can people go to find out more about your campaign?
Thank you for having me. It is such an honor to be here with you and to connect with folks in Midland County and beyond. I'll be back soon. Folks can find more information about this campaign and donate at garlingilchrist.com, GarlinGilchrist.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at GarlinII, and you can follow me on TikTok at GarlinGilchristMI.
Thank you so very much for being here once again. And to all of our listeners, thanks for tuning in. We're the Beyond Resistance Pod, where we share hard-won insights to build blue power in red communities and start winning. Thank you so much for coming and for joining us today.
Bye, everybody.
You can listen to the Beyond Resistance podcast on all major platforms. Leave us a review to boost this episode and help us reach more blue dots and red seas. Follow us on social media and like, share, comment to increase our reach. Subscribe to our Patreon and gain access to our private Discord channel and make monetary donations of support through Venmo. You can find all of this and more at beyondresistancepod.com. Beyond Resistance is a Beyond Resistance LLC production. Producers Jennifer Austin and Sarah Schultz. Editing Jennifer Austin. Theme song We Run the Room by Shadow Kitten.